There is a fifth dimension.
About the unknown.
Beyond that which is known to man.
The Garden of Thought.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace.
Unexplained.
Mythologies.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call...
The Garden of Thought with Jeff Lippman.
Eventually, our sun will grow cold and go out.
You're listening to something much bigger, something hidden in plain sight.
It won't just take us. It'll take Marilyn Monroe and Lao Tzu and Einstein. All of us was for nothing, unless we go to the stars.
What you're about to learn will completely change the way you experience your mind, your thoughts, and yourself.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
The Garden of Thought.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of the Gospel of Thomas. With us this week is, of course, Mr. Thomas, the number one contender to the Major League Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship title, and someone who's personally promised to throw Juicy Fatu over the top rope without even breaking a sweat. How are you, Thomas?
I don't think I quite promised that, but I do plan on body slamming this dude 4th of July style for America, brother.
That's excellent. Also for America, you put out your best interracial top 5 tag teams, of course, putting Devastation Corporation in the top 5. So nothing self-serving about that.
Very biased to that tag team that's never made it on national television, but that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it.
Good opinion. Okay, excellent. Somehow you missed Sasha and Bailey, but okay. We also have, as I promised for weeks and weeks and weeks, the co-host Lufisto coming to us from Canada. How are you, Lufisto?
Canadian. Sorel, Canada, a small city nearby Montreal that nobody knows, but it's quiet and that's where people go to die. So I was born here and I'm going to die here. So
we love the Royal Mountain here. We love the Royal Mountain. All right. And also we have with us, he's just started a new podcast recently with his co-host Kevin Kelly, who may show up at some point. We hope so. But we have veteran of WWF, WCW, WWE, and probably a whole bunch of other places in there as well. Veteran wrestler and now podcaster Casey Thompson. How are you, Casey?
Good. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Cut a promo. Come on. Let's hear some energy there.
I'm ready to go.
All right, ready to go. Okay. All right. So here we are. So anyway, as everyone here knows, except maybe you, Casey, but hopefully you do, we use wrestling only as an icebreaker and a crutch. So as an icebreaker, Casey, tell us a little bit about your wrestling career and obviously about the podcast as well.
Let's see, I started wrestling. Oh, my parents were huge wrestling fans back in the 70s in Michigan, the Sheik's territory, big time championship wrestling. As we grew up, we moved down to Florida. We were in Fort Myers. They were watching some wrestling. It was like a WWF, the Madison Square Garden Network. I walked by the TV and I was probably 9, 10 years old. And I was like, I don't know what this is. It's stupid. And then they were watching championship wrestling from Florida with Gordon Soley, and Dusty Rhodes was on there on the mic, just talking away. And I was hooked. That's what I wanted to do. And we ended up moving up to Central Florida into Orlando. And there was a poster for a little independent show that was actually across the street at the Central Florida Fairgrounds, and also said, become a professional wrestler. I was 15 at the time, and my dad and my parents were totally supportive. So I started training. I actually trained for a whole year. I was trained by an old territory guy, Golden Boy Jerry Gray. Spent a lot of time with him, and he really spent the time to work with me to help work on my craft and everything. I had the pleasure of I was married to and broken in by Bugsy McGraw, an old, he's 80 years old now and as sharp as a tack, but man, he sold out Madison Square Garden with Bruno. So I had the, privilege of being broken in by him. And then as time's moved on, and about 4 or 5 years into it, I was real good friends with one of my mentors was Blackjack Mulligan. And Blackjack had a school, and I got to learn under him, learn the psychology of the business, the do's and the don'ts. And then and I knew my last mentor was Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan, I knew him when I started, and he was always around and involved, and very, very, very close friends until the day he passed and everything. But I was fortunate. I was I was too young for the territory days, but I came in right after, and I was able to wrestle for many years with WCW, for WWF. I got to travel the world. Basically, I got to live my dream. And then in like 2003, my son was born, and I had to go out of the country. And like 2 days later, and I was just so miserable. I was like, I don't even want to, be around. I'm like stiffing the guys in the ring. They're like, what's going on? I mean, I always wrestled stiff, but I was extra stiff and now. And my heart wasn't in it. I was like, I've seen so many guys over the years have no relationships with their kids because they're on the road so many days. I was on the road sometimes 300 days a year, 250, even if I wanted to be a part-time wrestler, be on the road 100 times a day, 100 days a year, it was too much for me to want to be a father. So I stepped back and said, you know what, I'm done. And I was fine with that. And then the opportunity came up where I had someone I met that wanted to start a wrestling company. So we bought a company from Canada in Michigan called Maximum Pro Wrestling, MXPW, and we moved it down to Florida, and we were able to I was able to promote shows, which was really crazy because that's like ended up being from just wrestling. I was ended up doing 60 hours a week. Because we actually had a television show that syndicated through the whole country. So for 2 years, so I was out there, promoting, writing, editing, A to Z. I was doing everything. So I did that for a couple years, and then I've just been, my son was a wrestler from 5 years old. He wrestled Division I in college, and now he's out of college. He's a police officer down here in South Florida. My daughter's a sophomore at Georgia Southern University. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to get in the ring. I have no desire to take another bump the rest of my life. My body's too beat up for all that. But, I was like, there's something I can do. And, everyone's like always, oh, you should write a book, from all the stories you have and stuff like that. And I'm like, I just don't remember that stuff. I've been hitting my head a lot in my life. And so, I mean, I've had like 11 documented concussions. So I said, you know what? My kids are grown. They're doing their own thing now. I don't need to be involved in every detail. So I thought about, let me do a podcast. So I called a good friend of mine. I've known Kevin Kelly for over 30 years. We wrestled. I mean, he commentated. His first television gig was with IWF with Eddie Mansfield out of Universal Studios, the original Soundstage 23. And I wrestled for them, doing a favor for Blackjack because Jack was their champ and everything. And a lot of their guys weren't that great. Some were good, went on to big things, and some were just like, woo. So I went, helped out and everything. So I totally just lost my train of thought.
I have a question for you. So while you're looking for it, whatever happened to Kendall Windham?
KW, he's still around. He lives in Tampa. He owns a security system. And believe it or not, he's filled out. He's like 270 pounds. I mean, shaved head. He looks jacked. He has nothing to do with wrestling, though. He's totally out of everything.
Too bad, Thomas.
I called Kevin Kelly. I've got it back now. Sorry. I've been running around all day doing stuff. I called
Thomas
Kevin.
Could create another interracial tag team.
Yeah. So I called Kevin. I said, hey, Kevin, let me throw something by you. I was pitching it because Kevin, when I ran my television show, he commentated for me and everything. Like I said, we go back 30 years. So I know he would shoot straight with me, tell me what he thought. So I said, listen, I want to do a podcast. And I know there's a million wrestling podcasts out there. It's a very saturated market. I said, but I think I have a unique perspective on what I said. So you take Hulk Hogan and you take, say, Sting. Sting's going to treat Hogan one way, but me doing TV as an enhancement guy, he might treat me a different way. So I said, I want to do one, and this is where the name comes from. On the podcast, I like to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff because everyone wants to know what happens behind the scenes. You go to a concert, everyone wants a full access pass where they can go see what's behind the curtain, So I do that with the podcast. So where the name came from, In Ring Wrestling Podcast. If you're looking at the format sheet back in the day, it would say Lex Luger. It would say M&E Music and Entrance with a time code. Then it would say Lex Luger verse. And then it would say big slash In Ring slash, and they write in Casey Thompson. So that's where the name came from, is like a little sidebar how it came In Ring. That's where the enhancement guy always got written in, where they could just write in whoever they wanted. So I told him my perspective, how I wanted to do it. And he's like, you know what? And what I was looking for, I said, you don't need like young boy that might want to be like a co-host with me to kind of keep the flow of the show going and stuff like that. And he's like, let me look into it. And we got back together a couple weeks later. He's like, actually, he says, I would really like to do it if you'd have me. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Kevin's great. He knows the history of wrestling like the back of his hand. It's like we can talk about anything. We do no show prep. We just get in there and just start talking. Everything's raw. It's just right off the cuff. We don't discuss anything at all, which is great because then we have a true reaction to what we're talking about. And the way we looked at it, I was with WCW during the biggest time in wrestling during the Monday Night Wars. He was in, WWF or WWE as one of the commentators and announcers. So we both have our own perspective of the business, from both sides. So we constantly, we weren't always together, but our paths are always intertwined, and we always have stories to show, to share about to each other and, to everyone about our times there. So, we have our own unique perspective of how we seen things, because my perspective in wrestling might not be the same as what someone else's sees, seen, through their eyes. So that's what we do. We just go out there and we just have a good time. We keep it short, 30, 40 minutes, just get in and out, and you give people, let them know about behind the scenes stuff that they always knew about. And then, stuff that we experienced through our time in wrestling.
Was it something, did it feel kind of unusual for you to talk about the business side and what people don't see? Because I always hear like the guys who've been in the business for so long, we're so like used to keep it quiet and, keep whatever happens in the business, like protect your business, like protect the. So how was it for you to actually be able to open up that curtain? Did it feel weird, or was it like, no, I'm comfortable with that, and I'd like to tell more people? Because the more I feel more people know about wrestling, the more they respect it, because they see the amount of work it takes to be a professional wrestler or even a promoter. Like, I have so many questions because you said you're a promoter too, and being a wrestler and then you switch. It's such like a world apart. So did you have any struggle, or you were like, no,
I started in 1988 and kayfabe was still alive then, even though Eddie Mansfield exposed the business on the 2020, and then you had Vince McMahon exposing the business again at the biggest platform, by, changing it from WWF to WWE to say it's entertainment, which he was just trying to avoid the state commissions and stuff like that. At this point, everyone knows, that it's a work or it's predetermined. I never used the word fake, because if anyone's ever been in the ring, do I know what's going to happen? Absolutely. Is it predetermined? Sure. Sometimes is it scripted? But I mean, when I get up in the morning, I've had, I go through some injuries real quick. I broke my nose like over 10 times. I've had 11 documented concussions. I broke my neck twice, all my fingers, my wrist, my knees. I've had surgery like 3 times in each. I need replacements. My ankle. I mean, head to toe. I used to be like, oh, my shoulders are good, but I have a messed up shoulder now. But so I never used the word fake because, usually when someone throws a punch and it looks really crappy, usually it's the one that really connects the most with you. And so there's a lot of real things that go involved to it. So, but back to what you're saying, No, because everyone exposed it so much.
Mhm.
So I was like, everyone knows about it. So I'm not going to say it's fake because no, I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's
But
it's
like I was
not. Their
saying,
body's
everything else.
telling
So
you every
yeah,
day.
right. So I have no problem, talking about that stuff, behind the scenes stuff. Like me and Kevin were talking, like a real big part of Nitro was when at the beginning when the Outsiders Hall and Nash came
Mhm.
and they were sitting on they had a makeshift studio arena set up
Yeah.
outside of MGM. And when Kevin Nash threw Rey Mysterio like a lawn dart
Oh
into
my
that
god.
trailer, I was actually right behind the camera. Okay. And then Kevin was talking about at the same time when they were doing the Montreal screw job, they had Bret Hart was doing the documentary Beyond the Mat. Kevin was with them behind that camera when it was going on. So we have so much insight of behind the scenes stuff that people don't talk about so yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It's just trying to remember all of it all the
Yeah.
time. But
Mhm.
yeah, but I think that's what sets our podcast apart is because we had one show we just talked about how the gorilla position originated and how it evolved into this. It used to be a table,
Yeah.
a monitor, and a headset with Gorilla Monsoon there.
Yeah.
Now it's evolved to, back Vince was, calling, talking to the referee, to the announcers. He could talk to the referees. He could talk to anyone he wanted through their IFBs. So it's really evolved into a big production. Just the gorilla position has
Yeah, it
evolved
went
into a
from
big
one guy
production.
to a mini studio.
Yeah. So, but a lot of people, I always use this as an analogy. Howard Stern, right?
Mhm.
Howard Stern would always talk about in his show when they would come in and start talking, they'd argue, and he'd like, oh, no one wants to hear about all this stuff behind the scenes and this and that. Yes, they do. That's what I cared about. I'm like, oh no, I want to hear what's going on behind the scenes where you don't see. So that's what I try to portray on our show, give them all that kind of stuff. So it's been fun. It's a lot of people, a lot of reactions. I've learned that if you talk about AEW, those people are going to hate you forever and talk all kinds of trash about you. But you know what? It's there's heels, there's
Is
baby
Kevin allowed
faces,
to
and
talk about AEW?
sure, yeah, he has a lawsuit against him. We talked
I
about it,
know.
but
I know his
it's
lawyer.
not saying
We're
anything
sort of
that's
friends.
yeah, it's nothing that's we're not saying nothing that everyone else doesn't say anyhow. No one
Mhm.
can talk worse about than Jim Cornette, you know.
Yeah, but
So,
Jim Cornette
but
is not subject to deposition.
but we did an episode. We just talked about all the good people that we're friends with. We like at AEW.
Hmm?
I start like you take Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn back in Orlando. His buddy Foster owned a gym, and my buddy Dominic owned another gym. And Foster and Dominic were buddies, and we used to all four go out to lunch before any of us got into the business. So and then now his wife is one of my best friends for you know 30 some years. So there's a lot of people. You take Jerry Lynn. I used to room with him in WCW, a good buddy of mine. He's one of the backstage, I guess they call them coaches, producers or
He's a
agents.
great guy.
So there's a lot of great people there too.
Sure,
So
definitely.
it's we don't purposely go out and shall we say shit on anyone. We just tell our perspective through our eyes
Mhm.
on the business.
Yeah, you've been in so many backstages that you don't need much time or like a lot of stories to kind of figure out what's going on. You've seen so many.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing between the two of us. And it drives our producer crazy because he wants to get thumbnails made in advance. He wants to have all of it charted and all this. He's like, what you guys going to talk about? We're like, yeah, we'll figure it out when we turn on the mic.
Yeah,
And he's like, oh, can we, because we just plan ahead. We're like, nah, we just, you take some of the best announcers, they never want to know the finish of the matches because they want to have a
No.
true reaction, you know, so, they say even now Michael Cole knows what's going on, but Pat McAfee, he doesn't know anything. So his reaction is a true reaction when he sees it live when everyone else does. So, we try to do the same thing.
Very cool. I mean, nobody gets on Penn and Teller for exposing magic. I mean, it's basically the same thing. I mean, and they turned it into their business model. So, I actually saw the Penn and Teller show live. It was like for my 21st birthday,
wow.
something. The girl I was dating like got tickets, and half the show is they do the tricks, and then the second half of the show is they do the same tricks, but they show you how they do them, and it's
crazy. That shit is wild.
Yeah.
And when it comes to wrestling, we never said it was real. Y'all said it was fake. Not y'all, but they said it was fake. We never portrayed it.
Never got that memo.
No.
Well, there are those. I mean, but there's always those in every business and everything. There's always the but actually person, or they want to make it more important than it is, or less important than it is. There's always someone that needs to be a little bit different, and oftentimes that's me, which is why a friend of mine once said, "The tallest blade always gets cut," which was a warning I should have listened to. So anyway,
and as you say that's the whole thing. When I wrestled, like when you watch the Sheik wrestle, you're like, that wrestling's fake, but that Sheik, that guy's crazy. That's his stuff's real. And that's what you always try to do. You try to make the people the perception that, what I'm doing is real. So, just like you're talking about, everyone's a little different, so that's how we would, I would try to portray myself when I wrestled, like, oh, that look, they about ripped his head off, broke his neck with a clothesline or this or that,
Well, I want to make a confession now to the entire world, and apologies in advance to Thomas about the minor part of this. To this day, I still get confused between Sheikh Adnan Al-Kaisi and General Skandar Akbar, and I'm not sure which one had Devastation Incorporated. I'm pretty sure it was General Skandar Akbar. Now, of course, the only Devastation Corporation I know is one of the top 5 interracial tag teams of all time. But so it's further muddied than
they were
the original Sheik, who's different than the Iron Sheik.
Incorporated. Jeff, you know about this. They were Devastation Incorporated. We were just Devastation Corporation.
Oh, I see. It's
not to get litigious.
Yeah, you're that but actually guy. Yeah, you could have got British and said Limited LTD. Devastation.
In this one scenario.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So by the way, if anyone can tell me the difference, that would be swell. I was always a number one Paul Jones and Devastation Incorporated fan because they had the Monsters. I mean, they never won anything, but they were the Monsters. I love the Monsters. I still love the Monsters. Everyone's like, looking.
Paul Jones had a great mind for the business too.
I am sure. All right, listen. So Kevin is in Pennsylvania. You're in Florida. Do you spend a lot? But you've known him for so long. Thomas is originally from Pennsylvania. He's in Florida now, so there's a whole lot of synchronicity here. What I want to know definitively, what's the best breakfast joint in Philly? It's Greasy Spoon. What's the best dive bar? What's the best cheesesteak, and what's the best fancy restaurant in the Philadelphia, sort of, eastern Pennsylvania region?
I only
Thomas question.
The only place I would go to was Tony Luke's after CZW.
Yeah, that is true. Proximity to the arena is always the most important when it comes to a wrestling.
Yeah, nearby that shady parking at the back of the CZW arena with the barbed wire at the top of the fence.
Tony Luke's was good when you were leaving the arena. It was the best because it was on the way to the highway. Hits the spot. It was open late. It's probably good enough. Good enough.
Okay. Casey, do you have anything more insightful than a restaurant that needed barbed wire around the fencing, like a used car lot with Dobermans in it?
Yeah, I try to avoid hotels and restaurants that have fences with barbed wire, because are they trying to keep you in or trying to keep people out? I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to go to the next exit, I think.
I think hotels with barbed wire are actually called prisons. So, I mean,
they're actually called itchy scratchies.
Okay. All right. Not just a cartoon, folks. This is an adult show for the most part.
You might have to put the dresser in front of the door to make sure that you're safe.
Understood.
And nothing's going to happen. I've had a few of those in my lifetime.
Okay. Well, this seems like a story that Thomas is interested in. Shaking his head. Nope, not me. Different Thomas. All right. So listen. So when did you and Kevin have to have any business meetings to discuss this? Did you do everything in person, or did you do it on Zoom, or had just telephone? How'd this work out? How do two
Just
old
right over
funny
the telephone.
buddies do that? By the way, I'm probably the same age as both of you.
Yeah, just right over the telephone. Just let's do it. When you want to start? Sunday. Okay. And that's how we started. You know, we started on our own, and you know the technical stuff we both weren't very 100% about. I thought he knew more than he did because of his background with radio production, all that stuff. So, you know, it took a few minutes to figure out how to turn on the record button and all that stuff, and we just kind of winged it and just learned as we went on. And we're fortunate enough now to have a producer that knows how to do all that stuff. And we literally just log on and push the link and just start talking. And then he says, okay, I need this. I need 10 minutes of this. I need this. And then he puts it all together, and we just supply the content. So it works out really great. We're fortunate enough to have Jordan as our producer, and you know, he does all the technical stuff that, you know, learn all about the analytics and all that stuff, because I was pulling my hair out trying to figure all that stuff out. So, you know, because being in the wrestling business, like when we did TV for like our call time was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're getting there, they're setting up the ring, doing the lightings, doing all that stuff. So, you know, you have some guys that would be sleeping, some guys playing cards, some guys playing video games. I always sat out in the arena because I always watched and looked to see how everything was done. And which that really worked well when I ran my own promotion, because I was very particular how things were done, the way it looked, because I was there and I just emulated it into my own, you know, promotion, and wanted to make sure everything was perfect, give everyone the perception that it was really big time, even though it wasn't, you know, because perception is everything, you know, in everything in the world, you know. So if people perceive that you're watching big time wrestling at the show, you know, then they're going to go back and tell everyone. So the same thing when I did my podcast, I just took everything and just tried to, you know, emulate, you know, perfection out of it and do my best to, you know, so I was constantly trying to figure out stuff, you know, researching, you know, everything like that. So when, you know, having a producer made things so much easier than one less thing I had to worry about.
I have a question
There
for you.
is such a gap between being a wrestler and showing up for your match, do your job and leave, or if you're in the indies, get your pay and leave, and being a promoter, because the promoter, the job almost never stops, because once you finish one show, you got to start thinking about the other one, the promotion, the marketing, who you're going to book, budget, all that stuff. How would you compare the amount of work that there is between the wrestler and the promoter? Because I feel when you're a wrestler, you're not really aware of everything that needs to be done as a promoter. And obviously, being a promoter, you need help. You can be a wrestler in your home on your own, but a promoter, there's so many gaps and things you have to fill and
A lot of
make
hats
sure
to fill.
yeah. So how would you describe both? So let's say a wrestler is listening. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't realize what it goes into putting on a show until you're the one doing it. So, I mean, I had an ideal because I always involved, like I was talking earlier. I got there early. I always wanted to pay attention. I was sneak in and sit in the production meetings to listen to what they were talking about. I mean, I always tried to be involved. You know, back when I was 10, 11 years old and, you know, in Fort Myers, Florida, I used to go to Lee County Civic Center. And this is old championship wrestling from Florida. I used to help set up the ring with the ring guy, Gordon Nelson, which he ended up being the ring guy years later in WCW when I was there. So that was really cool. And then Coach John Heath was Fort Myers was his town, the promoter for it. He also had Sarasota, Ponta Gorda, Naples, stuff like that. So he would send me the posters to my house for me to poster the town for him. So I learned a lot of the stuff like that. You know, so being a wrestler, you're gonna make sure that you're in shape. You know, you get ready for it. You have to, you learn your craft. You're on shows, so but you're always learning. You're always evolving as a wrestler. So, but you do the basics. You're gonna make sure that you have the right gear. You look good. You look like a professional. Like you can step on TV. You want your body in shape. You're gonna make sure you're like me. I'm a very fair complexion, so I always made sure I was always tanning every day. At the tanning bed, and then also putting stuff on to make myself look even darker and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the worries. And then you get there and
The Hogan
you
84,
find
the
out who you're
Hogan
wrestling.
87 tan.
What's that?
The Hogan 84, the Hogan 87 tan.
Oh, the darker the better. Arn Anderson says, what was his old saying? Tan makes fat look better.
It hides the fat or something. Like
yeah, it's because Arn was a little chubby guy, So, but so yeah, those are the things you worry about, and then you get to the building, and you find out who you're
Thomas
wrestling.
works with his clone right now, his science experiment.
What's that?
You work with Arn's science experiment right now as his clone.
Yeah, Arn's kid does not tan at all. I tell him all the time, brother, you're missing out on it.
Yeah. You know what? And it's funny because I know Arn really well. You think he would tell that to your son, because Arn would tell me, always stay in shape. This is one of the advice he gave me. He says, you never know when they're going to call. He says, stay in shape, stay tan, always be ready. Some of the things you learn as a wrestler, you always have your bag in your car. Always, because you never know when they're going to call and you're going to need it for the last minute. I've gotten bookings many a times. Like my first time wrestling with WWF, I rode up with two guys. We were doing a double shot. I wasn't booked on the show. Two of my buddies were, and it was Pensacola, Florida, and Biloxi, Mississippi. So I'm like, it's not costing me anything because WWF paid for the car, the gas, the hotel. I'll eat free at the catering. So I was like, I'll just go for the ride. And the first day I went there, and nothing. They had nothing extra. Then the next day we were in Biloxi. Tony Gurria was walking around and was like, can anyone do Legion of Doom's finish? Can anyone do their finish? And everyone's like, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that finish. And he's like, all right, you're wrestling Legion of Doom. I said, I'm not even booked on the show. He's like, you are now? I said, okay. And so when he walked away, I looked at my buddies. I said, what's their finish? I didn't know. And they're like, oh, the Doomsday. I'm like, oh, okay. I had confidence in my abilities, so I didn't care. And I did it. And they're like, listen, it's like playing chicken in the pool. We're going to go under, he says, and then I'm going to give you an Iggy on your calves, and you just do like a calf raise, and he'll pop up on your shoulders, he says, and then a hawk will come off the top, give you the clothesline, and I'll push your legs up and do a flip. He said, you don't need to do anything. I'm like, okay. But I always like to have a little extra. So I actually pushed off his head and I did 1, 2.5 and landed on my belly. And it was on the scissor reel going into WrestleMania and for SummerSlams that year on everything. So, but me being there, having my bag with me, I was ready to go. And that's how I got in with them. And it just went on from there, It just kept on just multiplying. So it's that's one of the things. You always have your gear with you because you never know when you're going to need it.
I got some boring questions for you that hopefully are interesting. So you said you bought a promotion that was in the Great Lakes and Canada, and you moved it to Florida. So I don't think that everybody in the world knows. You just buy a promotion, and it's probably a company. It's probably got shares. It's probably a corporation or something like that. You can't just move a company to another state necessarily. You have to take steps. So, like, instance, so what are you buying first? Are you just buying the name? Are you buying the contracts of any of the talent? Are you buying the goodwill? Or did you get the equipment? And, so what do you buy with it? Because basically when you move it, 1,400 miles, you're more or less starting over. You just have a name. So what was
Well, and that's the whole thing is that for our television, they wanted to have like 5 years of, incorporated for 5 years to show that you have.
Got it.
So we're, like you said, we were a fresh start, brand new company. So we bought a company that was already in existence. That way we could turn it into the TV. So we bought the name, we bought the incorporation, we bought we got the ring, the belt, all that kind of stuff, all that
But you got the 5-year
equipment that came
lineage,
with
which
it.
was, it's the same reason why people on Amazon file for a trademark, even though their name isn't special, because they want to get on the preferred registry. That's smart. That was tactical. Like if you just did it, I was hoping there was a reason, because I'm wondering why you do it. Now I know. Perfect. Excellent.
Yeah, so that's why we did it, because now we're in Florida, but we already have 5 years behind us. So it was easier to get into getting a TV, deal with the television stations and stuff like that, because we have a little bit of a background behind us.
That's called privity of ownership in law, kids. That's called privity.
You know more than I know. I just was doing what I was told.
Listen. Well, somebody told you true. Just like Stephen King's The Stand. I see you true, Roland. I see you true. So yeah, I'm going off into one of my other geekdoms, which hopefully somebody here knows what I'm talking. It looks like Lou might recognize. Nope, she's just humoring me. Okay, the Canadians are always so nice. Leave them alone on the 51st date thing. Come on, it's not even funny.
We don't want it. Thank you.
It's not even funny. It's not nice. It's just silly. It's just, even the Wall Street Journal says, okay, we don't do politics here. What am I doing? All right. So when you start a promotion, like I don't know much about Florida. I have a lot of assumptions. Half my family lives in Florida, but that doesn't mean I know a damn thing about it, other than everybody has a trust and there's taxing benefits if you're old, and maybe period. And I know there's a homestead exemption, which we all learned from OJ Simpson. How is it about getting a wrestling license in Florida? Is it easy, hard? No,
Well, we don't have a commission, so it's not hard. It's just the regular, just the business license, incorporating like anyone else. Just like you would, open up a shop or something. So yeah, I did have all that from wrestling in all the states. Every state you go to, you'd have they had a commission. You had to get a license. I think it was just a scam for them to get $35 from you back in the day.
It's the biggest cash grab ever that, like, I don't understand to this very day, like how many people are registering to be a professional wrestler in Washington, DC. It really doesn't add up. They're not making any money from it, because it costs, for whatever, the same $30 for them to print the form out and the fake card and send it to you with postage, as to them to just say, hey, just show up, brother.
Yeah. It's the second biggest, because there's minimum property taxes on entities in both DC and Maryland and probably other places, and most entities don't own any property, so it's a user fee. And here I go being boring again, but these things interest me. This is what interests me.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. This is behind the scene things that people are interested in, and you'd be surprised how many people are interested in this kind of stuff.
I would be surprised. Then why aren't you listening to my shows, people? Like Garden Views, which is now just the midweek version of Garden of Thought, is basically all sorts of stuff like this about all different areas of the world. So cheap plug for myself, I suppose. By the way, we're very nice to your producer. We should be to her. So I have to hit the record button here. So I'm the on-site producer, but our producer on our platform, Anthony Missionary Thomas from Wrestling Soup, works magic. He's going to make us all sound better in the back. He did the intro. He's going to help. He does the outro. He does everything. God bless him. And all for the price of nothing. And even worse than that, he has to talk to me sometimes. So, I mean, so he's really paying a price for that. But you're thanking your producer. We should thank our producer. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I cut you. So, okay. So Greasy Spoon, we didn't get past Tony Luke's. So when you have to meet Kevin, I assume you visit him sometimes. He visits you. Where do you guys go to dine, and where do you go to hang out?
I mean, we're old now. We're not hanging out a lot. Besides hanging out on the, I prefer just to eat at home. My girl's an incredible cook, so Italian, so she can cook anything you want. Mm-hmm. But actually, probably the wrestler's biggest place to go to eat would be the Waffle House. Believe it or not,
I believe it.
I've had Waffle Houses all over the country.
Yeah, I do believe it. I hear it. I hear about the Waffle House all the time. I have been to many a Waffle House. I don't know what the big deal is.
It's like home cooking.
They undercook the home fries.
And it's always open.
You always have to tell them you want them cooked well done. burnt.
That is I forget that every single time, Jeff. I have the same complaint every time I get the home fries, and I forget to order them well done every time.
I'm like,
well done.
Flip them a
Burnt.
couple extra times. And, I don't like scrapple. I don't like grits.
Tell them, listen, I'm not in a hurry. Cook them well done. Don't rush on my account.
Now, here in Baltimore, we used to have a place called Sip and Bite, which, that was like the ultimate greasy spoon. There was a place called Never on Sunday because it was never open on Sundays, but it was open all the other time. So that was good as well. But I have to, another confession. I always prefer Denny's and or Shoney's to Waffle House.
Talking about Shoney's, back when I first started wrestling with WCW, the ring announcer ended up being the ring announcer, David Penzer. He lived in Miami. WCW rented a van, and he'd drive right up the turnpike, going up the state, and picked me up in Orlando, picked another guy up in here or there, Jacksonville. We always start off in Atlanta at center stage, and then from there we'd go out another 250 miles for TV the next day. But we always would stop in Lake City, right by the Florida-Georgia border, for breakfast at Shoney's every Monday morning.
You said something earlier that
he would always
go ahead, finish up.
He would always, because he started off in Miami, so he started off in the middle of the night. So he would just lay on the floor in the van. We keep the van going while we went in there to eat and come out and just keep on driving and going. One time, he heard the van starting to go and everything. I guess he looked up to, say something to somebody, and apparently some guy decided, oh, there's a van here running, I'm going to steal it. So he looked up, and the guy's like, whoa, and Dave's like, whoa. The guy jumps out the van because Dave thought it was us coming in there. The guy didn't realize there was someone laying in the back of the van on the floorboard, and so it made for a really exciting, we got to lock those doors from now on. So there's always something on the road that was exciting or, kind of crazy that always happened.
So there's some tell story telling there was Haku, there was lying in the man, or it was Hawk and Animal, and that's a story. But there's something you said earlier. You said, WWE paid for the car and they, and the gas and all that. I don't know that everybody knows that's the case. I wasn't sure that it was the case that WWE paid travel. Did WCW, did WWF when it was WWE? Is that standard in the industry across the board, or does it trickle down to TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor? I'm not going to ask about MLW. I don't want to get Thomas in trouble. I assume the indies, it's not like that at all. But
it really depends who you are. Now, back in my day, WCW paid for the car and paid your gas. They did not pay for your rooms. So, and WCW paid you each match. If you wrestled more than once, you got paid double. WWF, they paid for your hotel. They paid. Now, this is wrestling on TV for TV guys. The contract guys were totally different. But for me, I got my car rented, which I was 18 years old when I started with WWF. And they actually sent me down a voucher, which was the same as the WWF credit card, because I wasn't old enough to rent a car. So they would pay for the car, they pay for the gas, they pay for our hotels. And a quick little behind the scenes side story about that. I remember Tony Gurria going around to the guys and are like, listen, we would like for you guys to rent a mid-size car and stay in maybe like a $40 or $50 a night room. Now, myself, I always got the Cadillac or Town Car, and I always stayed at the wherever the contract guys, the top guys are staying, we stayed in the same place. And for whatever reason, they never said anything to me. And then I remember going to turn in my receipts to get paid. An old TV guy, Mike Jackson from Alabama, he came up and was like, hey, how are you doing your trans? I'm like, I'm just giving the receipts. He's like, no. This is what you do. And told me his method of doing it. And I was like, did it, and they're like, okay, no problem. Arnold Scolding would hand out your money, and I'm like, whoa, I just made a ton of money off of his motto, his
His method.
equation he uses for trans and all that stuff. So, and then because I brought up a couple guys, WWF would actually throw me in a little extra, bonus money for bringing up good guys to work TV and everything. So it was fun. But WCW, but what I was saying, WWF, one time you got paid for the day, and that was it. So if you wrestled 3 times, you got paid one time. WCW, you wrestle 3 times, you got paid every single match. So when you wrestle WWF, you're like, oh boy, I don't want to wrestle once. But you wrestle, WCW, you wanted to, I'll wrestle 4 times a day because you're getting, 4 paydays, so it's, but yeah, each of them were different. And then like independence, it depends who you were. Like when I ran my promotion, if I brought in someone that was like a named wrestler, I paid for their flight, I paid for their hotel. But if there was just another independent guy or something like that, I'll give them their payday for the day, and all the other expenses were all on them.
Okay. I mean, that's sort of what I figured it was. I have to be honest, I don't know how some independents make money when like I know what 7 years ago it cost to bring in Nick Aldis and Camille. And there's 400 people in the building, which is pretty good for an indie, but the tickets are very reasonable. And I just, the rent was probably nothing on that warehouse in Joppa. And they have but I just, and just because I don't understand the business model doesn't mean there isn't a business model. There is. I just don't know all the pieces to it.
A lot of people don't understand the model, and they're running the shows too. I looked at it this way. When I called the guy and they're like, yeah, I want this much. And I'm like, okay, I'll pay you that, but you have to guarantee you draw me that much in ticket sales.
Oh,
otherwise it's not worth me bringing you here in.
And by the
I
way,
said, so why don't you tell me a realistic number? You might want $1,500, but you're not going to draw me $1,500. What do you think you can draw me? And I used everyone in the business I've used, so, and they got it. They're like, I'm like, listen, this is a business. Now, when we first started, we knew that we weren't going to make money off our shows, but we were, shooting TV. So we knew the investment was there. We'd make our money on the back end. So we used, I have some of the posters up from back in the day. One of my shows, I had my partner originally was D'Lo Brown. He stayed around for a couple shows and kind of, he kind of bounced off. We used Shane Douglas, Norman. I'm just reading one of the posters. New Jack, Conan, AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, Glenn Gliberty. Why, I don't know. Christopher Daniels. Yeah, Sandman, Dusty Rhodes, Barry Windham, Warlord. And then D'Lo. I think D'Lo was trying to use a lot of the TNA guys because he was with TNA at the time, so he was trying to, get in good there. And I was like, listen, these guys aren't going to draw any different if I bring in, a name or two, sprinkle a couple, guys like that, and then bring in top local guys that looked the part, could wrestle, could talk. And so he ended up going away. He, walked away after a couple shows. And so I reformatted everything, and I just used different local guys that I didn't have to bring in. Like a buddy of mine, Chaz Mosh from the Headbangers from WWF. Another buddy of mine was the Warlord. He was local. I would bring him in. Luna and Gangrel, because they're all local. And I used Dennis Knight, which was Midian or one of the Godwins, him and Norman Smiley. So those are my name guys that I used. And I actually drew a lot better than all the big names because, I hit the streets and I promoted it and just did it that way. And it became more profitable that way.
And they were still local for you. So you had no extra expensive of flights and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Right. I want to elaborate on one thing I said earlier, because when I said I know how much they paid Nick Aldis and how much they paid Camille, so that my guests understand, there are people out there who go, you say you think you're an insider and you're not an insider. I've never said I'm an insider, and I am not an insider. The only reason that I know how much they pay for it is because by complete coincidence, we were sitting behind the MCW's champion's girlfriend and her best friends, and next to us was his father and his brother. Like his whole family was right there. So they told me how much it cost to bring them in. So they were the insiders through blood and family. And in fact, I only got their attention because I was booing him and I was rooting for Nick Aldis, because I'm rooting for the guy that's 6'5", 265 pounds and looks like an action figure, not the guy who's 5'6" and looks like half the people I know. So and they're like, hey, why are you booing? I'm like, well, look at him. The other guy looks like a Ken doll. And he's like, that's my boyfriend. So, I mean, I'm like, okay, you're allowed to root for your, it's not just a local hero thing. So, I'm not going to get off on principle, but that's how I know, not because I'm an insider, just because it was.
So since it's just the four of us, how much did they say they made, since it's just the four of us talking here?
At the time, it was $1,700 to bring them in. Now, hold on. It was $1,700.
Hell no.
Listen, it might have been for both of them. It might not have been a piece.
And this is when they were wrestling just NWA?
Yeah, Nick was carrying the NWA belt and Camille was still his bodyguard. And Camille was, more of a big woman. I mean, she's an Amazon now, but she's beautiful. She's like a fitness model now. She was thicker than this. Was back when they were still doing risky business, and like she, back off the men and stuff.
I could be wrong, but I believe the NWA, if you were the world champion, had like a minimum how much they got paid.
Oh, I'm sure.
Even to wrestle, because one of my buddies was the NWA world champion at the time, before Billy bought everything out and all that. So he wrestles for MLW, I think, or did. So,
well, who is it?
He was the I don't remember his MLW name, but he wrestled as the Almighty Sheik.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Thomas is with MLW, so he would probably know. But
yeah, he was with what was it? What's the one that just went to WWE? Fatu or
Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, he was with Fatu. He was
in Contra. Was it Sean Davari?
No, his name was Joseph. I think he was his manager.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I cannot, for the life of me, I can't think of who like the manager leader of Contra was at the time. I can tell you that I ordered a shirt about 6 years ago and it still hasn't come.
Oh, from him?
Well, no, from Contra. From MLW.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Contra has the coolest logo like I've ever seen in wrestling. Like it's actually something. It's got like all these ancient symbols, sort of in a hexagon. It's really cool with like different like weapons. Listen, I probably boobed up the online interface. It's probably my human error. It probably isn't MLW.com that didn't.
I would imagine my buddy, because he does all that graphic design, because he would design all of his shirts and all that stuff. He probably came up the design himself and everything.
Well,
so
if you buy an MLW merch now, I mean, obviously it's going to be a Mr. Thomas or a Boomier now. So so now. And since I only have a limited budget for like, I must have 100 t-shirts and like, I only need 3. So it's like getting new t-shirts isn't exactly a priority, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I mean, of course I need one for, my bromance of 20 years, the almighty Bobby Lashley, unrequited unilateral bromance, but still one day. Fingers crossed. Lou, I know, obviously you were like a queen of the indies and we were talking about travel and whatever. Is your experience similar to what Casey described it? Like you got booked to go to the show and you were sort of on your own for everything else?
Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. You make your own promotion, you design your own gear, you train yourself. Like we don't have a manager where somebody books our dates. It's pretty much us that we have to go out there. Like back, it makes me sound old, but back in my day, I needed to send like VHS tapes with promo pics back. And remember that now they just have to send links.
Funny you're talking about that. on one of our podcasts, we were talking about how back in the day, it's not like now where you have social media, everything. Was constantly on the phone. You probably can relate on the phone making calls. And back then, you paid for long distance.
Oh my
so
God,
my phone bill would come in like $200-$300 a month trying to get booked. I'll send out VHSs. I'll send out 8x10s, constantly trying to, so that's why when I went to the shows, you would have guys like, I was buddy with like Sid. He was like, in downtown Bruno, Harvey Wimpleman, he knew every phone number in his head. He's like, downtown, give Casey the number for this, and tell him to call me. So you always try to network anytime you're anywhere because it was so hard to constantly keep things rolling all the time. Now, like nowadays, you have social media, you have digital, it's there.
Yeah,
it costs you nothing. Back then, we had all the additional expense. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just I totally related to what you're talking about.
Oh, and I could relate to everything you were saying to like how to bring your gear. Like nowadays, I tell the young kids, like even when I go train, go at shows, say hi, shake hands, have your gear in the back. You never know, some guy might run into a car problem, whatever, and they need someone. So like, well, I'm not going to go. I'm not booked. Well, you're never going to be booked because they get thousands of, maybe not thousands, but
a lot of
messages. And if they see your face and you're there and you show that you are actually very interested in working for that promotion, they're going to remember you before they remember whatever message they saw on Facebook.
That's why I always bring Lufisto's gear with me whenever I go to wrestling.
But yeah, you got to bring your gear, and you have to go there with your promo pics, your VHS is like, hi, my name is so and so. I work there. Here, I would love to work for you. Here's my stuff. And like you really had to go through. There was a longer process. By the time they looked at your stuff, if they did not throw it in the garbage, because it happened too. Look at your stuff, and then they find a way to reach you. And it's funny because I'm going through like all my stuff right now because I've collected so many things for 27 years that I just found this week, like,
oh wow,
like business cards of promoters, or they would write stuff in the back. Like it's not this way anymore. Like everything gets lost in the digital like media.
Yeah.
Like,
I found one of my books lately, a calendar that have all my dates and my payday and actually who I wrestled and everything. It was interesting to look through and everything.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
First match to the last one, like who I wrestle, where. I didn't write down how much I was paid. I should have, but yeah, who I wrestle, who won, city, all that stuff. I kept that.
Yeah,
like, I keep telling people keep them. You never know. Like it might be.
I just set up my office and studio, and I have all the memorabilia, like posters from overseas tours, all the posters
posters and plaques.
Yeah.
A poster from Japan right here. And I got some of my favorites.
And then I had that up there too. I have people who was, did something to help me in my time in wrestling. I have a few of them up there and pictures of myself and stuff like that. So but people come into the room, they're like, wow, you've lived a really interesting life, I'm like, well, yeah, I guess so.
I always feel there's not enough respect for enhancement talent, and there's not even in like the enhancement talent, especially WWE, it's kind of gone right now. But before that, it was such a key part of making someone look good, and so they would like wrestle enhancement talent, then go on the big shows, and then the stars would clash. Now it's like TV ratings, so you need the big matches all the time. But I don't know if maybe it's something you can explain or since you lived it, but as an enhancement talent, like the hard job of making someone look like $1 million every time you go in there, like to be an enhancement talent and to do it for so many years like you did. Most of enhancement talent were better than the actual stars as wrestlers because they could make everybody look good. And
Kevin, when we first started the podcast, he's like, so Casey, let me ask you a question. The main event's the most important match on the card, right? I just started laughing like, okay, I guess so. I said, no, actually not. I said, the most important would be the one of the first matches that sets the pace for the whole night.
Exactly.
You know,
One and last is
But-
how you start and how you leave. So they remember and they want to go back. And the one like it's
Absolutely.
going to set the pace for the whole show.
And when I was wrestling, you know, especially if I was a baby face, I always wanted to be the match before intermission.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's like, you don't want to be main event? I said, no. They're like, why do you want to be there? I said, don't worry about it. That's where I want to be. The reason why is because I would really sell and get that sympathy with the people and then roll right out of that ring and go right over there and sell all my merchandise.
I did the same
And so all my pictures and t-shirts and all that, you know, because back in my day, you know, we weren't making a lot of money, you know, on the, you know, local shows and stuff like that. So we would depend on, you know, the merchandise to, you know, make a, you know, make our, you know, income come up. So, but yeah, when I was, you know, babyface, I would sell my ass off and get that sympathy and, you know, get all those girls that love me, and I'll just come over and make all that money.
Yeah, I never. When I would lose, I would say like, "I'm really sad. Please buy one of my T-shirts. Gonna make me like, it's gonna help me get through this."
So when I mean,
Exactly.
one, you know how people always say kids today don't understand this, and half the time kids today probably do, or they have an equivalent thing. But kids today really don't understand the arguments and the trouble that you used to have if you made a long distance call without your parents' permission, or if you made a long distance call that lasted more than 20 minutes, because those things really did. Like now with cell phones, nothing costs anything practically, and with WhatsApp, you can, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're calling Timbuktu or Burma or
Right.
Australia. It's
Calling collect from Mexico, your mom, you're crying because you're in a hotel with full of cockroaches.
Now on that though, Lou, when you did the pan of your room there, and there was a poster of Japan, that begs a question to me as an independent wrestler. When you're going to Japan, I mean that's not a small investment. So like, are you being flown in for one show and you hope you're going to book a bunch of shows, or do you somehow manage to book 5, 6, 7 shows, or you know who's responsible for the round trip ticket?
Yeah, back then you had to be chosen. I had to send like tapes and stuff, and they would say, okay, they would bring me in. So they paid for flight. I was living in a dojo.
Sure.
I stayed there for 2 months, trained, wrestled, like I think it was like 3 or 4 times a week. It varies. And I was supposed to stay there for 3 months, but my knee gave out after 2 months. It was already injured, and I really didn't want to miss that trip. So I went anyway, but after 2 months, I was done. And yeah, I was fortunate enough that they chose me to go to Japan. Right now, like not right now, but as time went by, people started to fly themselves there and hoping for bookings, and it kind of it not that it killed the whole thing about bringing the chosen ones, but it got easier to go to Japan because people were willing to pay for it. Like I was studying too. Like there was no way I could afford a plane to Japan or a hotel or whatever. But yeah, nowadays there's more people, I would say, who fly themselves overseas, and then
you're absolutely right. You're right. It does kill it for people that are, you know, getting paid to go over for a tour. We're like, oh, well, this guy will pay his own trans over here.
Exactly.
You know,
oh, yeah.
So it's like a cutthroat. You know, back, you know, you go over to all Japan, you got yourself a 3-week tour, making, you know, $6,500 a week, and they're paying for everything. You're wrestling every night, you know, and then nowadays you have to compete against, you know, some kid paying his own way over there trying to get on. So yeah, it's crazy how everything changes in the business.
Yeah, and
over time.
it happens on indies like nearby. Like you have someone who has 20 some years of experience, charges more, and they're like, well, I'm gonna book this girl instead because she charged me $20, but I'm like, she's 2 months in, I'm 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, and being a promoter too, I understand the money issue. You have that budget, so you can't afford everybody. There's people I would love to book, but I'm like, you know, if I want to make sure that at least I don't go under, like I can't. So there's those hard decisions you have to make. But
it's not a charity either.
Oh, no. I mean, it's, and as much as you want to offer exposure, like the person who's coming, need to give them a little something. So at least they're like, or I try to provide a little bit of food or something else. So
I did that when I ran my television. Like I said, I try to emulate what I was involved in my day. So people would come, they got paid better than they get paid anywhere else, for like the local guys. And they got there, they'd have the run sheet, everything was professional.
Yeah.
Then there was catering there for the day and everything. So, I mean, they all wanted to be on the shows because it was just top notch, but that's the whole thing. Perception is reality. If I could take some decent hands, but they look like real professional wrestlers, or I could take guys that look like they're from the backyard but can work their ass off, all this flippity floppity shit. I could take the guys who are big that look the part, and with the whole presentation, and people will leave thinking they are at a big time wrestling thing. Wrestling
and
event.
you as a promoter, the way you set up your booking, you can help them structure the match. So you hide their weaknesses, put up front their
absolutely
their strength.
And it's amazing how people don't understand that. They just put them out there and say, "Okay, go." No, I would start off. Okay, your first match, you don't go out of the ring. You stay in the ring. You keep it going. You're gonna, set the pace for the night. I want, 12 minutes, like a non TV match, 12 minutes. You're not going to go out there and wrestle 35 minutes first match. People are going to be like, the back in the day, Kevin Sullivan was really good about teaching me this because he really knew. He was one of the greatest minds ever in the wrestling business, and could really book, could really book heat, and he would tell me, he says the attention span of a person is about 17 seconds.
Yeah.
So you got to, so you worked everything around all that and everything. So yeah, I used the Warlord a lot. He's not the best worker in the world. He looks incredible, so I would put someone with him that would accentuate all that and hide all the other stuff. I usually bring in Apollo from Puerto Rico. Luke from the Bushwhackers was like, "Hey, man, can you use, so I bring Apollo in from Puerto Rico, and I used him against the Warlord, two big old massive guys, and I would always have like a big pull-up part with all the guys at the end, go off the show like that, and people go crazy over stuff like that. All these big guys in the ring and everything. So it was yeah, definitely you hide and accentuate and cover up, and it's when you really know what you're doing running shows, that's what you really have to do. So it takes time to sit there and figure out, okay, what's the best, combination here to make my promotion set apart from everyone else out there.
Are you still running
said
your promotion?
Make your promotion apart. It's so much more. Like every match needs to be different. You need to bring a product that's different, but you focus on how the people are going to feel, not necessarily what they're going to see, because they remember how they felt. 1,000 moves, they're going to go, oh, like right away, like when they see it, but they're going to forget it because they're going to see 20 of them. But yeah, if you just remember Wardlow, like Lord, very, very impressive, and then you put him in against another guy, it's something that, wow, like they feel something seeing that, so they'll remember it. So, and it's the promoter's job to put the right people together. Instead of putting two rookies together, you put one with a veteran and the other one with another veteran.
And have a ring general.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a ring general, so you have no clue that one of them is brand new because the other guy's going to cover and protect and
absolutely
make him look good.
I remember once back, and this is back ahead, we're talking about having your bag in the car, and I had a beeper, and I got a beep, and I knew there was a show in the other in Florida across the state, a guy that I worked for all the time, but he didn't book me on it. I'm like, all right. So I get a beep, and he, Paige, and he calls me. He's like, hey, and one of I had multiple characters. One of them was a a ninja, but I had a big hood with like a really long weave built in and everything. He's like, hey, do you have that? He's like, hey, I have a cancellation. Do you have that ninja with the wig? I'm like, yeah. He's like, one of her name was Allison Royal. Allison Royal canceled. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I need you wrestle Malaya Hosaka tonight? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I tell you what, I have no problem doing it. I said, but I want Allison Royal's pay. And because back in the day, because the women were an attraction, they weren't on every show like they are now. So the pay they always got, because supply and demand, they got paid more money. So say I might have got paid $50 as a local guy, they're getting 150. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take her money, no problem. So but because I had my gear in my bag, I can make it there on time. And I wrestled. I don't know if you know who Malaya Hosaka is.
Yeah, I did shows with her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we ended up becoming really good friends after that. She stiffed me once. I had to give her a receipt back, and so. But yeah. So, but I had my
But it's cool
bag
because you had another gimmick that you could work into that. You made an extra pay.
Yep. It's all about, it's just like you're saying, nowadays just waiting for them to call you. It's just, it doesn't happen that way for everybody, especially if you're not established or,
know somebody.
A lot of times it's really true. Out of sight, out of mind,
Oh, well, this was a really insider wrestling show, which is usually, I tried to get onto food, but the Waffle House kept being the fancy restaurant. So that obviously wasn't going to work. Maybe I should have Zicky Dice on again, even though that show hasn't, well, by the time people hear this, they'll have heard that. Because I have a feeling he and I could talk about scotches and steaks, pretty well. I'm working on a new best friend, of course, always. Actually, I think Zicky would be bad for my health. Actually, I don't think I could keep up with that. I did have a question though for you, Case. Before you show, is your promotion still going? Are you still running that?
No. It ran its course, and I got out of everything and was content. And then that's when the podcast came up years later.
Okay, very good.
So,
all right.
That's a cool thing about wrestling. There's many hats you can wear. Start from a wrestler,
absolutely,
a manager, a referee, a promoter, a booker, and then onto podcast, or like there's a lot of things you can do.
I was going to say, if you
and I was like, I have
you can book Thomas. He's local, but apparently not localish. He's in Tampa.
Is you still there, bud?
No. He had to take an important call, so he's.
Oh, gotcha.
He's on stuff. If we wrap up, I'll wrap up for him. It's fine. I don't know. I don't know well enough to promote his actual business, but I at least know his Twitter and whatever. So if anyone's interested in his business, they can contact him on his Twitter, which is also his Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. And he doesn't always remember to promote his business as well. We were going to talk with Kevin. One of the things was going to be shitty corporate jobs, because Thomas knew that Kevin had a corporate background as well. And I was going to ask him some things about, the actual differences in Japanese culture, but maybe we'll.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not going to make everyone sit here on the off chance that at this point Kevin shows up. And I think you guys gave us a lot of wisdom, and I really enjoyed.
Yeah, he's been sick, and I don't know what. So I'll find out, and I'll get back with you and figure. Usually he's pretty spot on, reliable. So, but
I've actually. I
guess there's something going on up there in PA.
Yeah, I hope he's okay. I have actually had a couple. Listen, he shouldn't know me from a hole in the wall, but like even in that, he's been historically pretty responsive. Even to me. Not that I bugged him more than, but that's the whole point. Is like twice, and like he's responded twice, and this is over the course of 2 or 3 years. So anyway, we'll hope he's okay. We'll assume he's okay. Casey, is there anything that you want to push or promote? Obviously, the podcast and where people can find and follow you.
Yeah, I just enjoy getting out here telling my story. Maybe it might help some young kid that guide them in the right way. not that I was always did the right thing, but I like to tell my story. But yeah, when just my podcast, it's on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, In Ring Wrestling Podcast. It's the same handle for all of our Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, all the way across the board. This In Ring Wrestling Podcast. We drop a show every week, and we like to get feedback, and what people like to hear about, we like to give them.
That's right. And Kevin not being here today is also typical wrestling, card subject to change. Lou,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know that you've got a lot of things going on, and then you've been pulled out of retirement by the Wrestling Soup Network, so I'm sure you've got a bunch of things to.
I'm like George Costanza. Like every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. So
You never retire.
no, yeah. I just stopped wrestling because I needed surgery, and I'm like training, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're looking great. You're getting back." I'm like, "I'm 45. I don't think so." And then, can you be a general manager? Can you be a referee? Can you be? I was like, "I'll see. Give me a break." But I love it so much. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff with podcast, Wrestling Soup, and yeah, just talking about it. It's just fun. So yeah, and it's a good time for wrestling now. There's a lot of independence. There's a lot of ways you can watch shows online, even if you don't have a TV deal, which is something we didn't have. That's great. They have platforms everywhere with Netflix.
Oh, the platform's changing so much.
Yeah. With Netflix now, there's a lot of new fans just looking around something to watch, following something wrestling, and here's you have a new fan. So a good time for wrestling, and so hopefully it stays that way. And
about your socials, your promotion, your GoFundMe,
promotions. I run the Women's Wrestling Syndicate, and I'm actually meeting tomorrow to see when I'm going to have new dates. So we have our YouTube channel also. So just subscribe, Women's Wrestling Syndicate. Also, you can find me on X as Lufisto. I have also one Facebook, which is Lufisto Professional Wrestler. There's a lot of fakes out there, please. And if someone is asking you for money, it's not me. So just don't. Oh my God, there's so many frauds out there.
I'm available for bookings for any all women's wrestling promotions.
Well, you should clarify that, because you do have a GoFundMe, so you should tell them what the legit GoFundMe.
Well, it's not really a GoFundMe. It's because I had surgeries that were not available in Canada because I suffered from lipedema. I needed 3 surgeries, and that was a total of $82,000. And the Wrestling Soup's been kind enough to, they're raising money for me. So every time I do a show for them, every ad revenue they send me, and I think they have a link. They either set up a GoFundMe or they put my PayPal. I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah, I do not have a GoFund myself right now because I have
Wrestling Soup
AEW fans trying to hack it.
I should really know what their website is.
Yeah, so Soup is helping. So go through the Wrestling Soups you want to help. I used to have a website when I was selling stuff, but now I didn't have time to update it, but I do have some t-shirts. I have some stuff. I should post it. I should post this thing. I'm so bad at promoting myself. I'm better at promoting other people.
Yes, we know. It is WrestlingSoup.com, which is, so hard to remember, especially since they host my podcast. And by the way, I'm totally okay with whatever revenue this podcast generates, that also being donated. Not that Mish really would need to ask me, but if he would, this is my express consent. If in fact it generates any revenue, and hopefully with legends like Casey and Lufisto on here, and of course future legends working on Legend Thomas. Oh, by the way, while you were off, we got you booked in Central Florida, Montreal, and you're going to Japan as well. Yeah,
First class, brother. I got long legs.
Sure, Godzilla class, absolutely. Thomas, I'm actually glad you're back. Not just because I'm happy to see you, but because I don't know the name of your business. So if I had to do your plugs, I can do your Twitter and your Instagram, but I can't do your actual, scripts business.
That's easy. It's scriptkingrx.com. Check us out if you're located in America where health insurance and prescriptions are a goddamn sham. Get your discounts on your prescription drugs, mostly for your testosterone and dick pills and Ozempic, but all the other drugs that actually help you stay alive as well. ScriptKingRx.
That is great. A wrestling and prescription together, man. You're ruling the industry. You're the king.
Testosterone will keep your muscles big. The Ozempic will keep your Ricky Stark slim and narrow. And
let me just let everybody know right now, I cannot get you a prescription, but if you have a prescription from a doctor, I give you a discount.
Oh, some king.
The text messages I get like, "Hey brother, I know you got something with prescriptions." I'm like,
you got some stuff.
Definitely from a wrestler when it starts off, "Hey brother."
Doctor from Paraguay.
Me any shit.
He's got a certificate from the University of Paraguay. So there we go. It's just pick like there's like these little countries that nobody knows exist, and like there's like Kaliningrad, which is like inside of like in between Germany and Poland, but it's actually like this little sliver of land that's actually part of Russia. Just say you got your doctor from Kaliningrad. No, there's nobody that can fact check that. Possibly. I'm not trying to pull a Donald Trump where nobody's heard of Lesotho. I've heard of Lesotho. It's actually within the bounds of what used to be South Africa. But Kaliningrad, that was a new one to me. I just thought that was like a city from World War II that, where like enemies at the gate was at or whatever. But I've been learning a lot about crazy stuff out there. But again, we don't do politics except when I slip up. So, all right. So, he's plugged. He's at Mocha Traps. That's both on the Insta and the X. I'm at Icarus Fell MD for boring and germane stuff. For wrestling nonsense, it's at Dose_Evil. Subscribe.
A lot of nonsense these days. A
lot of nonsense, including retweeting your top 5 interracial tag teams of all time. So yes, definitely a lot of nonsense. What else? Oh yeah, Gardner thought you get 3 shows, and this is one of them. So check it out. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our guests and our co-host, Lufisto, who hopefully will co-host again in the future and will be roped into being a guest at some point, especially since both of us got the night off last night from doing the SmackDown review show.
And Casey, tell your co-host he's got a size 14 coming right up his butt cheeks next time I see him, because he stood me up. First one's free. And that's all good. We'll get him on the next one, and we'll go.
Hey, he stood me up too.
Well, then he's got 2 size 14s coming up.
Hell yeah!
It's very.
He's only a 12.
I'm not threatening anybody. I'm not doing. I got big, strong people to do that for me. And Lufisto, you're too far away. So we can do that. All right. So here we go, everyone. Hopefully, we gave you enough nonsense. Go check out the Yingling podcast. Check out everything that everybody said. And, as Mission Company like to say, much love, but I'm not really sure I really feel much love. Just, much, enough love.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of The Garden of Thoughts, The Gospel of Thomas, with special guest Casey Thompson from the In-Ring Wrestling Podcast. Follow Casey at In-Ring Podcast on X and subscribe to the show on Spotify. Donation link to help Lufisto can be found on WrestlingSoup.com, and also follow Lou on X at Lufisto.